Welcome to Which APICS Certification is Right for You, the first of 4 webinars about the APICS certification program. I'm very happy to introduce the presenters for today's webinar. Bob Collins, Senior Director, Professional Development, Kathy I. Martino, Director, Product Development, and Megan Glass, APICS Learning Systems Product Manager. Welcome, Bob, Kathy, and Megan.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Kathy, can you tell everyone what we're going to cover today?
I'd be happy to, Kim. So today, everyone, we're going to be able to join. We're happy that you're going to be able to join us today. In today's webinar, we'll look at 3 APICS certifications, CPIM, CSCP, and our last certification, CLTD. We'll talk about the differences between them and why you might want to consider one of them over another. Bob, can you tell our audience a little more about why APICS certifications are a fantastic choice for companies and individuals?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So APICS has a global footprint with over 47,000 members in over 100 countries, with hundreds of partners around the world and over 2,000 active volunteers. In addition, APICS offers the 2 most recognized certifications in the supply chain and operations management profession, the CPIM and the CSCP, and the new logistics certification, CLTD. We also have 2 professional membership types, APICS Plus and Core. And as an APICS Plus member, you'll have the added benefit of discounts for the APICS learning systems and exams. So that's why APICS. Kathy, why don't you tell us why supply chain?
Absolutely. So Bob, supply chain is increasingly becoming a strategic directive for companies. Corporations compete on their supply chain so the supply chain function can make or break a business. More importantly, for our listeners, according to Supply and Demand Chain Executive, between 2010 and 2020, the number of available jobs in supply chain will grow by 26%. This makes it a perfect time to be in supply chain. And APICS can validate your ability to apply supply chain principles through one of our certifications.
You'll also note that in the Gartner's Chief Supply Chain Officer Survey, the top priority investments that provide companies with the most value are quality of product supply, sales and operations planning, and supply chain analytics. All of these are major topics covered in the APICS certifications.
Organizations with employees who have earned an APICS certification can anticipate better alignment of their global supply chain with their business objectives, better productivity, collaboration, and innovation. Note that, according to PwC in their Global Supply Chain Survey, companies can expect to achieve 70% higher performance when they focus on supply chain excellence. Employees who have an APICS certification have effectively demonstrated mastery of the body of knowledge covered by that certification, and they are often more productive and successful in the workplace. This adds to their employer's bottom line, which adds to the stability of the company and their jobs, as well as opportunities for higher level positions and salary increases. And APICS has, over the last 60 years, established the standard terminology in operations management, supply chain management, and now in logistics, transportation, and distribution. Standard terminology means clear communications, which means better solutions.
And APICS world-renowned certification programs provide operations management, supply chain, and logistics professionals with relevant, essential education that equips them for today's fast-changing marketplace. Our 3 flagship certifications are CPIM, CSCP, and CLTD, and today we'll be discussing each of these in more detail. So Kathy, how do supply chain and logistics professionals choose between these 3 certifications to determine which best suits their needs?
That's a really great question, Bob, and one I'm asked all the time. When I'm asked which certification is right for me, I actually have a pretty simple answer. I'd start by asking where the certification candidate is focused, or where would you like to be in their career over the next 5 years? So start with your end in mind and think about where you want to be in 5 years and which certification will help you get there. Bob, would you expand on how different professionals fit into one of the 3 APICS certifications?
Sure. At the center of a supply chain and the supply chain success are people. Certified professionals are equipped to make more substantial contributions to their organization than non-certified professionals. In this diagram, you can see some of the job titles as they relate to the 5 primary management processes that describe all business activities associated with satisfying customer demand: plan, source, make, deliver, and return. These are also the high-level process references in the Supply Chain Operations Reference Model, or SCORE, framework. For example, in the far left box, master schedulers and demand managers generally perform planning processes. Now, the CPIM certification provides in-depth coverage of the plan and make processes, while CSCP covers end-to-end supply chain from suppliers to customers. And now, with the CLTD certification, APICS is expanding its reach into the delivery and return processes. So, Kathy, let's dive a little deeper into CPIM.
So over the next 5 years, if you think you will have an internal focus within the 4 walls of your company and your responsibilities include improving forecasting, scheduling, and inventory management, CPIM may be the best option for you. Securing a CPIM certification demonstrates your ability to understand and evaluate production and inventory activities within a company's operations. You need to pass 2 exams to earn CPIM, and there are no eligibility requirements. Once you earn the CPIM designation, it can help you maximize ROI on the systems and technologies, for example, ERP within your organization, master the tools you need to effectively improve internal operations, earn customer satisfaction by delivering lean, just-in-time products and services, and enhance your credibility within your organization.
Based on the current CPIM certification holders, these are the top 10 job titles of these certification holders. Now, note that this list is not inclusive of all job titles for CPIM, but gives the top 10 in our current database. So, Kathy, let's turn briefly to CSCP.
Absolutely. So if your role has an external focus or outside the 4 walls of your company, and your responsibilities include working with vendors, customers, and the flow of information, product, and money throughout your end-to-end supply chain, CSCP may be a better choice for you. A CSCP certification validates mastery of the end-to-end supply chain. CSCP has only 1 exam, and there are eligibility requirements that we will explain in a later slide. CSCP certification can help you cover the end-to-end supply chain, including globalization, IT enablement, logistics, service industry, and more. Maximize your organization's ERP investments, effectively manage global end-to-end supply chain activities, and increase your professional value and secure your future.
So based on the current CSCP certification holders, these are the top 10 job titles that they hold. Now again, this list is not inclusive of all job titles for CSCPs, but just the top 10 in our database at this time. Okay, Kathy, how about CLTD?
All right, so for CLTD, if your role has a focus specifically in the deliver or return functions of your company, CLTD is a great choice for you. CLTD certification indicates a mastery of day-to-day functions of logistics, distribution, and transportation. The CLTD has only one exam, and there are eligibility requirements that, again, we'll explain in a later slide. The CLTD has a deliver and return focus, which Bob mentioned earlier, and will help you gain recognition in the field as logistics expert, expand your outlook and bring new ideas to your workplace, positively impact your organization's bottom line, and maximize your organization's distribution and transportation processes.
So again, based on current CLTD certification holders, these are the top 10 job titles that CLTD holders have. Again, this list is not inclusive of all job titles for CLTDs, but it is the top 10 within our current database. Now, Kathy mentioned earlier about the eligibility requirements to take CSCP and CLTD exams. So we suggest that you begin with the end in mind by filling out an eligibility application as one of your first steps. The application is free and easy, and approvals never expire. Eligibility applications must be received 2 weeks prior to the day that you register for an exam. You'll receive notification of your eligibility immediately after completing the application unless you're flagged for an audit. Also, people often ask what APICS means by supply chain and logistics related business experience. Related business experience is work that directly connects to some aspect of the supply chain or logistics fields. We've listed a few examples on this slide. Again, note that this is not inclusive of all related or relevant experience. And again, just to emphasize, we suggest that you fill out the eligibility application as your first step. Megan, what learning options do candidates have when preparing for any of these exams?
Well, Bob, there is an individual learning system for every one of these programs. So the affiliated learning systems contain a number of tools for students, including printed books, as well as web-based study tools. And these printed books are also available in e-reader format online, which can be viewed on any device with an internet connection, and also as downloadable PDFs for offline viewing. In addition to the reading materials, the web-based study tools are a collection of educational activities that are designed to work in tandem with those reading materials. So the full online suite includes thousands of questions that all of our systems are developed using a model. So the model that we have will put you on a path to success that utilizes all the tools that you can see listed on this slide. These building blocks, these steps 1 through 4, are really there to help you from the first step on your path to certification all the way through to sitting for the exam. So the simple 4-step approach helps you to make sure you're ready. In step 1, our learning system helps you to assess yourself and to plan your studies. So we always begin with that end goal in mind. We help you to create a study plan and assess where your strengths and weaknesses lie. After that, we move on to step 2, when you begin to study the materials and apply what you've learned in the online quizzes and activities. We offer you online reporting so you can focus and see where your weak areas are and your areas of strength. And we have sections of our exams that are weighted higher than others. So we make sure that you're focusing on the areas that you need to focus on to pass the exam. In step 3, that's when we really feel like it's time to get practicing and testing yourself. So our program includes timed exam simulators as well as additional support tools so you can confidently move on to step 4 and sit for the exam. So just to dig in a little deeper into the first step for assess. The first activity you'll do after watching the introductory videos is to take the pretest. So this pretest in all of our programs is weighted to the exam. This means that you can assess your current level of understanding for each of those important areas. Then after you take this test, you input those results into a tool we have called the Smart Study tool. And this also allows you to indicate your own level of comfort and it will personalize a timed study plan for you. So using this tool helps to give you a plan from start to finish based on the time that you have available for studying. And this is also going to help you to focus on the areas of most need. Once you've assessed yourself, you'll move on to step 2, which is the study portion. So during this phase, you're going to start by reading those materials based on your study plan you just created. And after you've read that appropriate section, then you'll go into the online tools, watch any relevant content videos, complete any associated online quizzes or learning activities and case studies. And once you've completed those, you can then review your results in your online report, take notes about which sections you had lower scores, and review rationale for all of the questions that you've taken in your quizzes. This is also a great time to review the flashcards and key terms and other references that are available in our online resource centers. Now, one question that we get a lot is, how long is it going to take me to study for my exam? And the answer really varies depending on each student. But overall, across the certifications, it usually takes about a 100-hour time investment. And even though that number may sound daunting, remember that that SMART study plan is there to help break it down for you into a manageable project. And once you've completed all of your study efforts and you're finally getting to the end of the road and you're ready to sit for the exam, you're going to move on to the practice phase. So this is where you'll put those final efforts towards making sure that you're prepared to actually sit for the exam. We have a number of final tests included in this phase to help you check your mastery, including a post-test and multiple practice exams. So the post-tests will have the same features as all the other quizzes you'll have used during your study phase, where you'll see rationale and correct and incorrect answers provided as you answer the questions. On the practice exam, which is pictured here, it works a little bit differently. So here's where you're going to experience that simulation of the exam experience. So you'll have a timer, you'll have the ability to flag questions for review, and as you answer your questions, you're not going to get an answer about whether or not that was correct or incorrect. But once you've finished the test and you've submitted it for marking to see how well you've done, you can always go back and review those individual questions to see that information. There's also a number of additional tools available to help you get in the right mindset and teach you techniques for taking these exams. So be sure to utilize these tools before you sit for the exam. And once you've finished all of your review and it's time to take your exam, maybe Bob, you can talk a little bit about how to step forward to that final part of the process.
Yeah, happy to. So for all of our certifications, the exams are offered at Pearson VUE test centers worldwide. Candidates will receive their score immediately at the test center after completing the exam. Individuals have the best chance of achieving their goal to become certified when they plan their exam schedule and actually schedule their exams with Pearson VUE. This puts a stake in the ground and a physical goal to work towards. Before we move on to our final section of the webinar, Megan, can you talk a bit more about the different delivery options we have for the learning systems?
Absolutely. So the learning systems that I just talked about, they're designed to be used in a variety of different ways. So you can choose the delivery format that best matches your learning style and your budget. Now, APICS chapters and international partners offer instructor-led classes and study groups that use the learning system materials. So you can check with your local partner to see if they might have a class for the certification that you're interested in coming up. A class is great because it provides structure, expert instruction, and the opportunity to have discussion with your peers as you go through the materials. But if you can't attend a class or you prefer to study on your own, the learning system is easy to use and designed for those who wish to self-study as well. In addition, organizations who want to offer more than self-study to their employees can receive guidance from our corporate development group on how to organize an in-house class or study group. So Kathy, now that everyone knows about their learning options, would you mind talking a bit about the cost?
Of course. Thanks, Megan. So here are the costs for the learning system and exam for CPIM. You'll notice that for CPIM, we offer a bundle for substantial savings, which includes the Part 1 and Part 2 learning systems and exams. This offer is only available to APICS Plus members. So if you are not a member, you can purchase the membership with the bundle, and core members can upgrade their membership to purchase the bundle. For CSCP, here are the costs for the learning system and exam. As you can see by the pricing, it pays to become an APICS Plus member before purchasing either the learning system or the exam. And remember, you have to submit an eligibility application before you can schedule your exam. Finally, CLTD also has discounts for APICS Plus members, and as with all of our certification prices listed here today, these only include pricing for self-study purchasers. Note that many of our North America chapters and international partners offer certification prep classes, and those prices are set by the partner and not by APICS. Partner classes prices will vary by partner, and often the price of the learning system is included in the class. Check our provider listings for more information. Bob, can you talk a little bit about options students have for funding their certification?
Yeah, so we all know that a great investment needs some seed money to get started. And here are some of the key ways many of our exam candidates get the funds they need to prepare. The first, of course, is corporate tuition reimbursement, assuming your corporation has that kind of program. Many corporations also hold their own in-house training with the help of our corporate development group. And then third, job training programs and military benefits may help defray many of these costs, so it's worth taking a look at that. And finally, for those who might find this attractive, PayPal offers a no payment plan plus no interest if your learning system is paid off within 6 months when you check out through PayPal. However, you do have to get pre-approval from PayPal Credit. Check their site for terms and conditions. If you don't think your company provides incentives, just ask. It's certainly worth investigating. But Kathy, I believe we also have the additional way that students can save on their certification investment.
We sure do, Bob. So now for the moment you've all been waiting for, we're offering discounts on courseware to our webinar attendees today. Save $25 on the CPIM Part 1 and Part 2 learning systems when you purchase your learning system using the code WBNR25. And the second promotion will save you $50 on the CPIM Bundle. The bundle, just as a reminder, includes Part 1 and Part 2 learning systems, plus both exams. In addition, the $50 will be good for CSCP and CLTD learning systems when you purchase using the code WBNR50. Bob, can you let our participants know where they can get more information on the APICS certifications and learning options if they're still undecided about which one is right for them?
Sure, Kathy. If you're still unsure which certification is best for you, or maybe you're still wondering about which learning option would be best, you can visit apics.org/education-selector, where there is a tool that can help you navigate through the 3 types of certifications and the Score P endorsement, and the various ways that you might prefer to learn the material: class, self-study, online. So you can find more information there.
And now we have some time for some questions. Please submit your questions by selecting the Questions tab on the toolbar on the right side of your screen. Enter your question and click Send. We'll answer as many questions as we can today. All questions will be captured and answered and posted in a Q&A document that will be available along with the recording of this webinar. Everyone who registered, whether they were able to attend or not, will get an email with the link.
So our first question I noticed up here is someone asked about the bundle and how long they have to take the 2 exams. And that's a great question because the bundle is a new and kind of a different product. And because there are 2 exams for CPIM, it's good to understand this. When you purchase the bundle, you will get 2 exam vouchers. Those exam vouchers will be good for 6 months. Now, don't panic because you can, anytime during that 6 months, use the exam voucher or exam credit to purchase an authorization to test. Of course, we're APICS. We have to abbreviate it to ATT. So when you purchase your ATT, your authorization to test, you have an additional 6 months to set up the actual exam. So that gives you a full year to take both exams, which for most people should be sufficient time. If you don't believe that you can complete the 2 exams in a 12-month period, we encourage you not to take the bundle, but to take the courses and exams as you need them.
So here's another question.
I was just going to say, I saw another question that's kind of related to that. So I just wanted to clarify that all of the learning systems also have a 12-month license for the online tools. So you'll have 12 months from the date of purchase for any of these learning systems that you purchase. So the time limit there does coincide with what you would get for the bundle for CPIM, but for the other learning systems, it's 12 months as well.
Thanks, Megan. So we have another question here about whether or not there was any figures to show how these certifications may impact salary. And APICS actually conducts surveys of candidates who have earned their certification, and currently we're showing that there is roughly a 12% increase in salary for professionals who hold an APICS certification. So that's something to hold on to as well.
One of you asked that you are an ERP consultant and asking which certification might be best. I was an ERP consultant for 10 years with my CPIM, and I rarely sat on the bench. When my resume was put forward to a company that was doing anything in manufacturing or distribution, they always told my company, give me the APICS guy. So I found CPIM to be very, very handy. Now, in the ERP, as they continue to grow, if your focus is really on end-to-end supply chain and not within the 4 walls of the company, CSCP would be better. At distribution and logistics are the modules that you're implementing, CLTD. But I think for most ERP consultants, CPIM is probably very handy. So
Bob, I saw
ahead.
a question you might be able to answer as well. The question was about, is CSCP basically CPIM plus more, or does CSCP include different components than CPIM?
Oh, that's a great question. CSCP does include different components than CPIM. So when we looked across the whole supply chain and we saw that CPIM covered planning and make, and CLTD covered distribution and return, but CSCP covered all 5 of the areas. So there is a little bit of overlap, but CPIM and CLTD go much, much deeper into the body of knowledge of those areas. CSCP is a look across the supply chain and will give you additional information, not only additional information to the CPIM and CLTD areas, but to all the areas combined, and look at the integration of how information flows from one end to the other and back, how material flows, how dollars flow all through the supply chain. So it really is a different focus than the CPIM. I did see someone else asking, and I think we answered it, but just so everybody understands, I asked if they should take the CPIM before taking the CSCP. And the answer to that is you do not have to do that. All of these certifications are standalone certifications. There are some, like me, who have multiple certifications, but there were reasons for that based on the jobs that I used to have before I joined the APICS staff. So each of these are standalone.
Yeah, and actually there's another great question that came in as a follow-up to that, which is, can you run all 3 certification programs in parallel, or at least 2? Certainly, you know, if depending on your career goals, you may decide having multiple certifications like Bob will be helpful for you in the long term. So for example, although your job may be inside the 4 walls of your company, and you may want to consider adding a CSCP to the CPIM to show your employer that you are capable of moving up in the organization. Just keep in mind that for studying and for taking exams for all 3 or any subset of 2 certifications in parallel, there's no APICS policies that forbid it, but just keep in mind it might be kind of a daunting process to undertake that much study prep for those exams all at the same time.
It kind of depends on your level of personal masochism.
Yes.
Because that's a lot of material to try and absorb all at once. So looking at the question, there are so many questions. We'll try and hit the highlights, and we certainly will provide answers for all the questions afterwards, if nothing else. So this person is presently working with a multinational company with well over 15 years experience in stores, warehousing, and mega distribution center. And I have second lower in business administration. My question now is, am I qualified eligible to sit for the CLTD exam? Yes, you are. The experience by itself would certainly qualify you for that. So get on the APICS website and fill out the eligibility form. You won't have any trouble with that. Someone else mentioned that they were confirmed eligible to take CSCP 4 years ago, and they're asking if they need to recheck their eligibility. No, you do not. Once you've been confirmed eligibility, you maintain that eligibility forever. So the experience or the certification or the higher education degree, bachelor degree that you earned that help you get that eligibility, none of those things go away. So once you've got eligibility, you continue to have it.
Hey, Kathy, there's a question about the exam formats and how many exams you have to take for the certifications and if the number of exams are changing. Could you clarify that for Cameron?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great question because we did recently change that, and it sort of depends on where you started with it. If you've already started the CPIM program, originally that was 5 exams. It has been reconfigured to be 2 exams now, although we are allowing people who've already started the process to finish in that 5 exam module if they meet certain requirements. So another question someone asked was, you know, if I've taken BSCM last year, does this mean I only have to sit for part 2 this year? And yes, that is absolutely correct. What we've been saying is that if you have taken more than 2 modules, that you can continue on with what we're calling legacy exams, and those will be available for some time, but certainly the quicker method is to go through part 1 and part 2.
There's a question here that's really good to pull out, and that is, you were talking about eligibility for CSCP and CLTD. I have a Bachelor's of Science Honors in Business Management, Logistics and Operations from 2012. Would there be any exemption for any of the exam or sections? And if so, how would I find which would be for me? So the way APICS handles certifications, we follow best practices in the certification industry, and best practices for certification is that the only way to get certified is to take the exam. So there are no exceptions. There are no, if you've got a particular degree or went to a particular school, you still have to take the full exam, just like everyone else. Part of that is because what you're doing on the exam, the types of questions you're answering are very different than what you learned in school. I would never, ever discourage anyone from getting a bachelor, master, if they want to tough it out, a doctorate degree in supply chain, business management, whatever. I think they're valuable to have in industry today. And most of our certification candidates at least have a bachelor's. Many of them have a master's. But what the certification does is it validates that you are able to apply the body of knowledge, not that you understand the body of knowledge. And that's a big difference between a course of study in a university and gaining a certification. But I think it's important that we needed to mention that.
I have a question from Julie about the learning system and the reading materials versus the online tools. So the reading material covers the body of knowledge that you need to understand for the exam, and then the online tools work in tandem with those reading materials to help you assess your level of understanding. So we're actually going to go more in depth on some of these learning system tools in future webinars. So if you have a certification that you're interested in specifically, we'll be able to dig into that a little bit more, and we'll have that information for you a bit later. But overall, the entire learning system is based on the same body of knowledge and the same outline that the exam uses to develop its questions.
Very good. Again, someone mentioned they're a recent college grad, majored in supply chain, but currently working in sales. They want to keep the option of working in operations open. The goal is to pursue an APICS certification to maintain their knowledge base in this field and eligibility to apply for operations positions. As such, which certification would you recommend, CPIM or CSCP? So if you're focused on operations, and when I use the term operations, I'm talking about improving the processes within the four walls of a company. Planning, inventory management, scheduling, MRP, master planning, execution, and so on within the four walls, then CPIM is definitely the better way to go. However, if the type of job that you're hoping to get into looks across the supply chain outside the four walls, whether it's in a sourcing area or in distribution and working with the end customers, then CSCP might be best and might match your current degree. But again, it really depends on what type of position you're hoping to apply for down the road.
We have another question that came in from someone who said, I've earned my CSCP and already have earned my CPIM. Should I maintain both of my certifications? And we feel very strongly that yes, you worked very hard to earn both of those certifications, so don't let them lapse.
Not only that, many of the points that you acquire to maintain one certification are applicable for the other certification. So you don't have to do you've got 75 points to maintain one of the certifications. You don't need 150 points, different points, to maintain the two. You can double dip, so to speak, and that makes maintaining both certifications better, easier. Someone said that asked if they needed to be in a supply chain position to try and get the APICS certification. They are unemployed and trying to get into a supply chain position. So the answer is no. You don't have to be in a supply chain position to try and get the APICS one of the APICS certifications. We have a number of students who are interested in changing jobs or moving into supply chain or operations management or even distribution and logistics, and want this little bit of edge in their resume by having one of our certifications. The only caveat that I'll mention is that CPIM has no eligibility requirements, but CSCP and CLTD do. If you've got a college degree, then no problem. You're eligible for either of those. If you don't, then take a close look at the job requirements. If you're not currently in supply chain or think you're not, or have not worked in supply chain, that might be a problem. But take a look, and it won't cost you anything to send in your eligibility application. And if you are denied, which is pretty rare, you can turn it in at another time when you've got the adequate eligibility points. So go for it. It'll help you as you're looking for a new job.
So Bob, there's a question here about the learning system materials, but it also relates to the exam. So the question was about how often are the materials updated. So the learning system is actually updated annually. So we're incorporating changes and feedback from the market every year. But we also have some larger update years when the exam body of knowledge changes as well. And Bob, maybe you can talk a bit about the JTA and how that process works.
Yeah, so APICS, again, follows industry standards for certification programs. One of those standards is that the certification exam needs to be based on the actual tasks that professionals do in that profession. And the way that we determine that is through a process that's called job task analysis, but we're APICS, we call it JTA. Mm-hmm. And in the JTA, we sent out a survey to thousands of professionals literally around the world, not only our own professionals, but we purchased lists to make sure that we've got a good representation of companies, job levels, job types, people with certifications, people without certifications, to determine what they do in their jobs. So they've got a list of tasks that they're given, and they respond, yes, I do this, no, I don't. This is important, no, it's not. I do it frequently, I do it infrequently. Those are the areas that we're most concerned about. Once we have all this data put together, it's reviewed by a JTA committee who takes a look at it, and then this committee makes recommendations to how the exam might need to change in order to continue to reflect what's going on in the profession. There is a separate exam committee who then takes that recommendation, makes final decisions on how the exam content outline should be formatted. They look at potential resources, in other words, textbooks, that they can use to create questions for the exam. And so that's the process that we go through. Now, we do that every 3 to 5 years. So during the 3 to 5 year period, when we're not doing a JTA or making changes based on a JTA, the only changes to the exam that will not be in the content covered, but we are constantly running new questions into the exams, again, on the same content as before, but new questions. And we have a process to do that so that they're not scored originally, but then once we're sure that they are a good question, they fall in what I call the Goldilocks zone. They're not too hard, they're not too easy. Then they become actual scored questions. So that's the process for the exam itself.
Great, so I think we have time for one more question, and this one's a good one. Does the bundle include CPIM, CSCP, and CLTD all together? And the answer to that is no. So the only bundle that we currently have is for CPIM, and that bundle includes CPIM Part 1, CPIM Part 2 learning systems, as well as both exams, so CPIM Part 1 and Part 2 exams. CSCP and CLTD do not currently have bundles associated with them. All right, so that's all the time we have for questions today. As a reminder, we'll consolidate all of these questions received today and answer them in the Q&A document that will be posted with this webinar on apics.org, and you'll receive an email with a link. Feel free to share this link with your colleagues, your boss, or other decision makers at your company. Bob, can you tell us about our upcoming webinars?
Yeah, this webinar is part 1 in a 4-part webinar series, and we hope you'll join us for a more in-depth look at each of the certification programs. You can visit apics.org/events to register for any or all of these upcoming webinars. We want to thank everyone for attending today. We hope you have a great day or evening or morning, depending on where you are in the world. All content and materials included in this online event are the property of APICS and are protected by the United States and international copyright laws. All rights are reserved.